Hello there, thrill seekers. Somebody said I look schlubby in my videos, and here I am looking extra schlubby in a schlubby, well, not so, well, in a lovely spiral staircase in Antwerpen in Belgium, where I am staying right now, and I'm going to be doing two talks, one tonight and one tomorrow night. And if you want info on the talks tonight and tomorrow night, you can go to the URL you are seeing below on your screen, or you should be seeing, which is hardcorezen.info/events, and there's a clickable link to the events tonight and tomorrow, and to my thing in Hebden Bridge. The Hebden Bridge thing might be full, but you can write to them and see. That's in England. You can write to them and see if you can attend if you want to try. And what I want to present to you today is an excerpt from a talk I gave at Benediktushof in Germany a couple of weeks ago. And it's about free will, and then I talk about vocations, and I tell a story that I told maybe a year ago on this video channel, so some of you might have seen it before, but I'm telling it again, and some of you might not have seen it before, so that's why I present it, because I thought it came across, it's the same story that I told on the video channel, but I thought it came across pretty well to an audience in Germany who wouldn't have been familiar with the stuff I was talking about, and they seem to have gotten it, so I thought it came across good. So, and it's a story about Buddhism and stuff. It's kind of interesting story. Anyway, it's called, I guess I'm going to call the video, Sometimes I Make Him Lift an Eyebrow and Wink. And so there you go. So let's take it away. And by the way, I am getting paid for most of my events here in Europe that I'm doing on this tour, which is almost over, but not all of them. So I really appreciate your support, and if you want to continue to support me, you can go to the URL you are seeing on your screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main ways of making a living. And I really appreciate your support, but as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. Okay, let's take it away. Me in Benediktushof in Germany a couple of weeks ago, talking about Sometimes I Make Him Lift an Eyebrow and Wink. I think all of us kind of behave as if there is someone doing something, you know, and there is a kind of a sense in which there is. And the reason I chose to talk about that is I always feel like if I'm going to give a talk, I should talk about something that's difficult for me. You know, if I talk about something that's easy, it's not interesting to me. You know, I could do it, but it's not interesting to me. So that one's always difficult for me. This idea, and I think if you look in the Buddhist literature, it's difficult. It's one of the most difficult, and the funny thing for me is it took me a long time to understand this. Last year, I think it was last year, I talked here at Benediktushof about this, the koan of Hyakujo's fox, which is this famous old story about a fox. And the question is an enlightened person subject to karma, you know, subject to the law of cause and effect? And I never understood that to be the same thing as, does an enlightened person have free will? Do we have choice? You know, and there's this idea that the Buddhist idea that kind of grew up was that if you become enlightened, only then do you have free will, and then everybody else doesn't have free will. And the answer in the koan is, cause and effect is clear. You know, it doesn't even answer, does the person have free will or not? It's just cause and effect is clear. So, yeah, so Nishijima Roshi used to use this metaphor about this, and he would say it's like a piece of pearl on the edge of a razor. And in Japanese, when you talk about an object, you always have to use a counter for the object, which is why he always said that when in English you'd say a piece of pearl. In English we'd just say a pearl. But in Japanese you have to say a something of pearl. So a piece of pearl on the edge of a razor sometimes falls to the left side, sometimes falls to the right side. And he'd say, in this single moment, which is the present moment, you have a choice. You have a free will just in this instantaneous moment. Once you operate, once you do something, then everything becomes fixed again, And so you have to, he said, everything you do is carved into the universe. He said this to one of his students, and then somebody eventually came around to me years later after he'd said this to this guy Jürgen, who lives in Hamburg, I think, a German guy. So you act in this moment carefully. And so, yeah, so in that sense you have some kind of agency, but you have to understand too, I think it's good to understand, maybe you don't have to understand it, that you're driven by all of these forces that, are so arbitrary. Like I gave the example from my own life, it's so many things that I have no choice in, And I think this is my personality. I'm very proud of, my taste in music and the films I like and all this other stuff. But I didn't choose any of the stuff I got exposed to and why I like it. And, there's so much, and I think it's all great, and I'm so happy about it, and I am. But I didn't make it all happen. Who am I to say it's so great? So it's just kind of, I'm just kind of, I don't know who the operator is. Okumura Roshi says there is no operator, and I understand that, and I accept that. But there's somebody doing something here, and so. There's this one thing that always pops up in my mind, and it's something that shows up in Shobogenzo somewhere. And it's this old Zen master, and he's saying, sometimes I make him lift an eyebrow or wink. And sometimes I don't make him lift an eyebrow or wink. Sometimes making him lift an eyebrow or wink is the right thing to do. Sometimes it's the wrong thing to do. And that make him lift an eyebrow or wink, the him he's talking about is himself, And he gives that example of lift an eyebrow or wink, like that's how much control he has over it, over this thing, over this something, And that to me is that's kind of the attitude that you see in the Zen lineage or the Zen stream about how much free will we have. It's very constricted, but there is this little bit, and it's something we try to be careful about, and that's kind of why we're constantly doing this. That's one of the reasons we constantly do this practice. We choose, in a sense, to do this practice and learn to be quiet so that hopefully we cannot be just driven by all this, all these forces. I mean, that's one thing I've noticed through the Zazen practice is there doesn't seem to be quite as much of that drive that gets me to do stupid things and then go, why the hell did I do that? There's a little less than there used to be as I keep practicing this stuff. And that's good. There used to be a lot more.
also thank you very much for this summary. I've also found it very interesting. Maybe related to his questions, by following this practice in that sense, is there something like, I find it hard to grasp, but is there something to be expected, like finding a vocation of sorts by becoming calmer and calmer and calmer and more quiet?
A vocation, like a job, you mean?
No, I mean more or less like maybe like a North Star where you want to go. Not in the sense, not in a traditional sense like a career path, but like more understanding your own purpose in a sense.
I think so. I think that does develop. I'm just kind of thinking about how it's worked for me. It's worked in the sense of accepting what sort of happens, in the sense that it's not that. Okay, the story that I always think of is one that's difficult to explain, and I did a video, I don't know, a year or so ago, where I actually used some visuals to explain it because it's so weird and obscure. But let me see if I can explain. So there was this guy, Ernie Anderson, and he was popular very, very locally around where I grew up in the early 60s. So basically before I was born even, he created this character on TV called Ghoulardi, and he'd put on this fake beard and mustache, and he'd go on TV late at night, and he would show these old horror movies, and he'd come on, in the breaks, and he'd make jokes and things like that, and people loved it, And he went off the air in 1966. So I was born in 1964. So if I ever saw the Ghoulardi show, I would have been 2 years old. So I don't know. I might have seen it because it was on so often. Eventually, he was on several times a day and stuff. It was so popular. But then I saw there was another guy who took over the show later that I remember seeing when I was a little kid. Right. But anyway. I saw this interview with Ernie Anderson later on. Later on, he became quite famous as an announcer. So he had this great voice, and he made a lot of money being an announcer, but just with his voice. He never became an actor or anything. And so this interviewer asked him, "Is there anything that you regret or anything you always wanted to do?" And he said, "Oh yeah, there's always one thing. I always kind of wished I had like a little part in a movie, like not a big part in a movie, but like a little walk-on part that everybody would remember, and it wouldn't have to be a big famous thing, but just something everybody would remember." And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, you did that. You did Ghoulardi, but you didn't know that you did that thing that you regret that you never did. And seeing that interview, I thought, how often in my life have I done exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't notice it because it wasn't exactly in the shape that I thought it should be, right? And I started, after seeing that interview, I started to look at my life and I started to think, oh yeah, I kind of did the thing that I wanted to do. For example, when I was younger, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and I thought that'd be great. It'd be a great life. I'd go around and tell jokes in front of groups of people, and that would be a great life. And then I could be like, well, I never got to be a stand-up comedian, but I do this, Yeah, see, everybody goes all laugh, and I'm like, well, I kind of did the thing that I wanted to do, So that's the way it kind of worked for me. So I started to think, well, maybe I'm doing the things I wanted to do, but I'm just not seeing it that way. And maybe a lot of us are doing the things we wanted to do, but we're kind of missing it because it's not exactly the way it comes. So I wonder if this is true for not just me, but maybe it's true for a lot of people, that we're just doing exactly what we want to do, but we're frustrated because it's not, exactly the thing, the way we thought it